the Extremist movie debate, and tonight we're talking The Arrival from 1996.
I am Joe.
I'm Ethan.
One of them is going to love it, and one of them is going to hate it. The coin will determine their future.
This is for me for The Arrival 96. I love it.
Yeah, you do. I hate it.
Okay, Joe, since you hate the film, this first question is for you. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle states, "It's a strong, lean piece of writing that moves quickly. Nothing is wasted and nothing happens the way you'd expect." Can you talk about how the pacing for this movie actually worked against itself? You have 1 minute.
I think the pacing for this movie worked against itself because the movie's kind of built up to be this alien invasion kind of thriller almost, but you just get this kind of just this long kind of brooding, slow paced like detective movie almost. Like he's trying to put the pieces together, but it's not entertaining because it's just like you're following the most obvious clues that are just falling into your lap. Like these clues are falling into your lap and you're just following them on a whim and everything's working out for you. Like even the danger that he like moves out of the way of works in his favor because there's the scene where he's in the tub and he's sitting there and he looks above him and he just sees him dripping and he jumps into the tub and a tub from the top floor falls through all of the floors and you're just thinking like, well, that's good luck. And then he looks up in the hole and one of the aliens actually tried to kill him with that, which is just a ridiculous coincidence.
Okay, Joe, that's your minute. Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Well, I think that it is a detective movie, and I think that's in the best way possible. It's brooding in that you have a guy who does not trust the world around him. He has always been an outsider, and that works really well for the movie because you establish right away that his girlfriend doesn't really have a reason to be with him, that he's skeptical of the reasons that they're in a relationship, and that ends up going into his relationship with his neighborhood kid, friend, person who ends up being his sidekick, and basically his boss as well. You start to learn that he doesn't know who he can trust.
I'm sorry, Ethan, that's your 30 seconds. Joe, you have 15 to respond.
You say that he's just an outsider, but what he really is just an asshole who's self-centered. So he's a very unlikable character. So we're stuck this entire movie watching this asshole be an asshole to people and then be confused why nobody wants to help him out. And it's not because he's an outsider, it's because he's a prick to everybody around.
Joe, that's your 15. Ethan, you have 15.
Oh, it's not fair to call him an outsider. I mean, he spent his entire life being ridiculed and
You
mocked.
called him an outsider.
Joe, please do not interrupt.
It's not fair to call him self-centered. I'm sorry, because he has spent his entire life just being ridiculed. That he just needs to feel that he needs to be able to defend himself, to feel validated for his
Can I
beliefs.
have 10 seconds, please?
You can have 10 seconds.
You say that he's an outsider his entire life. Why does he have a girlfriend?
That's what he says.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to move on to the next question. Ethan, this one is for you. Lisa Schwartzbaum from Entertainment Weekly states, Sheen's acting, which can range from effective, controlled intensity, as seen in Platoon or Wall Street, to idiotic, uncontrolled venting, as seen in Terminal Velocity, is in pop-eyed mode here, and he spends most of the movie in a kind of sweaty apoplexy that makes you worry about his health. Can you describe why his acting in this movie actually elevates the film? You have 1 minute.
Oh, absolutely. Because, again, he is trying to convey a sense of being uncomfortable with the state that he's in. And I feel like every drip of sweat that you see on his forehead is actually him in conflict with the world around him. He doesn't know who to believe. He doesn't know who's on his side. He doesn't know if his entire life is a joke, if what he saw was real, and eventually he learns that it's real, but then learns that there's a huge global conspiracy to allow the Earth to be warmer, to kill off the humans so the aliens can live there. Like, it's an absolutely absurd premise that he is uncovering and having to come to terms with, while at the same time having to come to terms with his own life choices. And in that, yeah, it's a little bit like watching Nick Cage of the last 20 years, and is that it's absolutely extremes, and it needs to be. Otherwise, his character does not make sense.
Thank you, Ethan. Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
He talks about how he's this man who doesn't trust anyone. He's going around this whole global conspiracy. But in reality, when you watch the movie, every single stranger he runs into, he trusts fully. When he's in Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at the power plant, he meets the woman who's doing the weather pattern tests. Mm-hmm. And within minutes of talking to her, he's like walking up to the room and they're just like getting into these very deep conversations about what he's actually doing there. So he's actually trusting everybody he knows too fully.
That's your 30 seconds. Ethan, you have 15 to respond.
Well, first of all, it's because I think that there was one of her facilities was destroyed just like the one that he was looking for, so they have that sort of kinship. But also, he's not telling her everything that he's doing at all. He's just talking to her about her studies on global warming and how it possibly coincides with what he's doing. But it's not at all like he's telling them about the global conspiracy to warm the planet. He doesn't even know about it at that time.
That is your 15 seconds. Joe, you have a final 15 to respond.
Thank you. Okay, so you say that he is not telling her anything, when in fact, people he's not even talking to are trying to kill him. And he's unaware of this, or he just doesn't care, and he's trusting strangers too much.
His boss knows that he knows.
It's my time, bud.
That's your 15 seconds, and we're going to have to move on, gentlemen.
May I please have 10 seconds?
In fairness, you may.
His boss knows that he knows. The end. He doesn't have to tell anybody specifics of anything. His boss will tell everybody everything else, and then he can send the swarms after him.
It's an assumption.
Thank you, Ethan. Okay, Joe, since you hated this movie, this next question is for you. And I'm sorry if I say this man's name wrong. James Berardinelli from RealViews.com states, "The Arrival is low-key, and it's as much a horror film as it is pure fiction. And also, this is not a dumb movie. In fact, with its heavy reliance upon real science, it's startlingly credible." So, Joe, do you think a movie is better using actual science, or should a director create their own science to match their own artistic vision? You have 1 minute.
I feel like to make a credible science fiction movie, you have to build your own reality and adhere to those rules that you set for yourself. It's great that this movie said global warming a few times and tried to bring that whole reality, because global warming is a real thing, bringing that whole reality to like an expanded version. But also the guy, he called it a clear fiction. No shit, it's a clear fiction.
He's pure fiction.
Pure fiction. So he's saying pure fiction and then talking about how they're bringing real science in and bringing real stuff into a pure fiction. I don't understand that guy's. I just don't understand what that guy's saying. Sorry.
Okay, Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, this movie is the best of both worlds. It's like the Hannah Montana of sci-fi movies. You have global warming. This is at the height of El Nino. Everybody is super up in arms about this. They were wondering about the greenhouse effect. Yes, I remember watching this on the news at the time. So, that is prevalent. However, you also have a movie that establishes all the aliens rules, how they switch bodies, how they have a little ball thing that spins around the room and destroys everything within a radius of itself. This is all interesting. The movie sets it up and it establishes its own rules, and then it follows by these rules, while also following by this very real phenomenon Ethan, we know about and how it could pertain to this movie's real world.
Ethan, that's your 30 seconds. Joe, you have 15 to respond.
They set up rules, but there's only 3 of them, so it's not hard to adhere to those very simple rules. And it's just kind of a meandering, boring movie when you get down to it, 'cause there's 3 rules and it's 2 hours and nothing really happens.
Okay, Ethan, you have 15 to respond.
This movie has Charlie Sheen dodging a bathtub falling through the ceiling. This movie has scorpions on a fan blade. This movie has an underground alien lair with body switching. You cut one open and steam comes out of them because they can't stand the cold. This movie has one guy getting frozen saying, "Don't do this," and then Charlie Sheen grabs a broken axe, cuts his arm off, and runs away.
Sounds cool.
Joe, you have a final 15 to respond.
You're just pointing at the most boring, stereotypical thriller action movie stuff, and you're just talking about how this has the best of all the worlds, but when you shove them all together like that, it's just a mishmash of nothing, and there's no thorough narrative.
Okay, thank you, Joe, and that actually leads me into my final question. Ethan, since you love this movie, this question is for you. Chris Hicks from DeseretNews.com states, "At its heart, The Arrival is really just a contemporary take on those cheesy B-level sci-fi thrillers that dominated the 50s, but it suffers from typical 90s movie problems. No logic, little character development, and a thin story that is supposed to be compensated for by its startling effects." So, Ethan, through the use of real science, how is this film actually better than many of the sci-fi films also released throughout the 90s? You have 1 minute.
Focusing specifically just on science.
Yes, on science and its the way it's used in this film.
Well, if we're looking at this guy's other movies, he talks about global warming, melting the glacial ice caps, and then creating Waterworld. This guy also made Waterworld. This guy also made Pitch Black. Pitch Black, Pitch Dark, Pitch Black. So, this is a guy who is familiar with sci-fi and other worlds, and so this guy grounds it in just this immediate world. What is happening in this moment as we're all studying El Nino and the greenhouse effect? Well, they've got ozone hole punched above Australia because of stupid aerosol cans. this guy is looking at what is that effect and how can we manipulate this real world phenomenon and give it a narrative that is sci-fi and a throwback to those cliche movies of the 50s and 60s, and that I find to be refreshing.
Okay, Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
See, I'd say that like the real science hinders this movie, and that like the old movies from the 50s were mostly centered on the aliens and what the aliens were doing, whereas this movie tries to make its centerpiece the terraforming and how the aliens are here to try to like take over the planet and make it inhabitable for them, whereas that just kind of takes away from the alien aspect of the movie. Like, we barely see the aliens in this movie. We don't see them until the third act, actually, and I think that is a real fault of the movie.
Thank you, Joe. Ethan, you have 15 to respond.
We see the aliens the entire movie. They're just not in their true form. We see them in the human skin, so who cares?
Okay, Joe, you have a final 15.
We don't see the aliens until the end of the movie.
Yes, we do.
We see humans that are acting strange. We see humans that are acting strange, so there's no sort of alien aspect to the movie until the very end of it.
Okay, thank you. And gentlemen, let's talk about how we actually feel. Ethan, you have 30 seconds.
Ooh, it's fun. It's real stupid, but yeah, this movie has a whole bunch of dumb 90s shit in it, and I find that very enjoyable. I thought that the stupid, overblown, way too reliable on coincidence deaths were very fun to watch, done poorly, and I enjoyed that. There's just this feel of shittiness about this movie that I just can't help but smile at. I just felt delightful when he cut the guy's frozen arm off just to steal a little camcorder tape. Loved it.
Okay, thank you. And Joe, you have 30 seconds.
There's definitely like a smell of shittiness to this movie. This movie is boring as hell. You don't see any fucking aliens until the end of the movie.
Seen throughout the whole movie.
You see them in their like human form, so like it's more of a mystery. The entire movie, like an hour and a half of it, is like this mystery thriller that you don't really know where it's going, and then you like find it's like what you hate about Stephen King movie or like books. It's just like, oh, why did all of this happen? Oh, aliens, of course.
Okay, Joe, that was your 30 seconds.
Fuck.
That's fair.
Okay, thank you, and tune in next time when we will be discussing 2016's Arrival.
7 lightning strikes, absolutely no thunder.
5 lightning strikes, nothing.
I'll amend that 6. It's 6.
Middle of the road, pile of shit. Very 90s.
Thanks.
Extremist.